Number 1. Officer Ashley McArthur. On September 8, 2017, 33-year-old Taylor Wright disappeared in Pensacola, Florida. Taylor was a private investigator and a former police officer. She was strong, sharp, and trained to see danger, but she was overwhelmed by her personal life. She had recently gone through a difficult divorce in North Carolina. The stress of the separation, the legal fight, and the emotional pressure pushed her to move to Florida, where she lived with her girlfriend, Cassie Waller. Cassie supported her through everything, and even though life was stressful, they were trying to build a new beginning together. Before moving, Taylor withdrew $34,000 from a joint bank account she shared with her ex-husband. She was worried that if she kept the money in her own name, it might be taken during the divorce process. So she made a decision she thought was safe. She handed the money to her friend, 40-year-old Ashley McArthur, to hold on to until she needed it again. Taylor believed Ashley was someone she could trust. Ashley had worked as a crime scene technician and understood police work. She appeared dependable and responsible. But what Taylor didn't know was that Ashley had already deposited the money into her own account and spent most of it on her personal expenses, including paying off credit cards and buying a motorcycle. On the morning of September 8th, Taylor left her home to meet Ashley. She told Cassie she would be back later. She expected the day to go normally, and she planned to discuss her money with Ashley. But that was the last time Cassie ever saw her alive. Ashley picked Taylor up, and the two drove to Ashley's family farm in Cantonment, a quiet, rural place far from the public eye. Ashley told Taylor they were going horseback riding. It sounded innocent and relaxing, but Ashley had another plan in mind. As the day went on, Cassie tried to reach Taylor. Taylor was normally attached to her phone, especially because she had a young son she adored. So when she didn't respond to any messages or phone calls, Cassie grew worried. She reached out to Ashley, asking where Taylor was. Ashley told her that Taylor was stressed and needed time alone, claiming Taylor wanted to be left alone for a few days. But this explanation didn't feel right. It didn't match Taylor's personality at all. Later that day, Cassie received a text message from Taylor's phone. The message said Taylor needed space and wanted a few days to clear her head. But Cassie instantly felt something was wrong. The message didn't sound like the way Taylor normally spoke. The tone was different. The style was different. It felt cold, almost foreign. Cassie became even more uneasy. Days passed with no contact from Taylor. Her friends grew anxious. Her ex-husband also became alarmed. Taylor would never abandon her son or disappear without saying anything. That simply wasn't who she was. So Cassie finally reported Taylor missing to the police. Detectives quickly looked at the last person who had seen Taylor, Ashley McArthur. When investigators questioned Ashley, she stayed calm. She claimed she and Taylor had spent time together and that Taylor later ordered an Uber and left. She said Taylor didn't want to talk to anyone. But detectives found Ashley's behavior strange and began digging deeper. They soon discovered the truth about the $34,000. They found bank records showing that Ashley had spent the money Taylor gave her to protect. This gave Ashley a very strong motive. If Taylor asked for her money and Ashley didn't have it, Ashley might panic. And sometimes people make violent choices when they feel trapped. Investigators checked location data on both women's phones. They learned that Taylor's phone and Ashley's phone were at the farm around the time Taylor disappeared. They also discovered that Ashley went to Home Depot shortly afterward and purchased concrete and potting soil. This was alarming. Concrete and soil are often used to hide graves. Detectives searched Ashley's family farm. On October 19, 2017, they found Taylor's body buried under layers of concrete and potting soil. She had been shot in the back of the head. Ashley had taken her there, killed her when her back was turned, and tried to bury her in a way she believed would never be discovered. The evidence showed that after killing Taylor, Ashley used Taylor's phone to send messages pretending to be her. She wanted everyone to believe Taylor was alive and simply avoiding people so that no one would suspect her. But the messages sounded wrong, and the police were already noticing inconsistencies in Ashley's story. The phone records, the Home Depot video, the missing money, and the grave at the farm all pointed to Ashley. She was arrested and charged with murder, first as second degree, then upgraded to first-degree premeditated murder. During the trial, prosecutors explained how Ashley betrayed Taylor's trust, lied to investigators, stole her money, and then killed her to avoid being exposed. They showed the Home Depot surveillance footage. They demonstrated how the phone records placed Ashley at the farm. They reminded the jury that Ashley used Taylor's phone to send fake messages, pretending Taylor was alive. They said Ashley's motive was clear. She didn't want to return the money, and she didn't want to face the consequences. Ashley's defense claimed there was no direct physical evidence that she pulled the trigger, but the circumstantial evidence was extremely strong. The jury listened to the witness statements, reviewed the records, and saw the full picture. It became clear that Ashley planned the murder, carried it out, and tried to cover it up. On August 30th, 2019, the jury found Ashley McArthur guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 25 years before she can be considered for parole. As of April 2025, she has served about 5 years and 7 months of her sentence. She is incarcerated at Lowell Annex Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida, and may be eligible for parole in 2044, when she is around 67 years old. Taylor Wright was a mother, a partner, a friend, and a woman who simply trusted the wrong person. She was trying to rebuild her life. She believed Ashley was someone she could rely on. Instead, Ashley took advantage of her at her most vulnerable moment. She stole her money, betrayed her trust, and took her life to protect herself from being exposed. Taylor's loved ones will never get her back. Cassie lost the woman she loved. Taylor's son lost his mother forever. Her friends lost someone who meant so much to them. The tragedy of this case is more than just the death itself. It is the painful reminder that sometimes the person who hurts you the most is the one you never saw coming. Number 2. Officer Alfreda Fluker. In Birmingham, Alabama, the police department was shaken in 2020 by a tragedy that no one expected from one of their own officers. The person responsible was Alfreda Janine Fluker, a veteran police officer who had served for more than 15 years. She worked on the crime reduction team, a unit designed to make the city safer. But instead of preventing violence, she became the cause of it when a personal heartbreak turned into a deadly outburst. For years, Officer Alfreda Fluker was in a romantic relationship with her co-worker, Officer Mario Theodore White. They were not just dating, they also lived together and worked together. Their personal and professional lives were deeply connected. People around them knew they were close. But what Alfreda didn't know was that Mario was not faithful. He had been secretly having an affair with a 43-year-old woman named Kenesha Nicole Fuller. Alfreda had her suspicions long before the incident happened. She felt something was wrong. Mario had been distant, acting strangely, and spending time away that he couldn't fully explain. Their relationship became tense and filled with arguments. But Alfreda could not prove that Mario was cheating, and that uncertainty ate at her. She loved him deeply, but she also felt disrespected and pushed aside. On the night everything fell apart, Alfreda and Mario had a heated argument at the home they shared. Voices were raised, accusations were thrown. Mario eventually showered, put on cologne, grabbed a pack of Viagra, and left the house. To Alfreda, these actions were obvious signs that he was going to meet another woman. Feeling both heartbroken and furious, she decided to find out the truth on her own. Instead of calming down or giving herself space, Alfreda used a phone tracker application connected to Mario's phone. She watched his movements in real time and followed him across the city. Eventually, she located him at Germania Park. When she arrived, she found exactly what she feared: Mario sitting in an unmarked police vehicle with Kenesha in the passenger seat. According to Alfreda's later testimony, the two were engaged in an intimate act. Seeing this with her own eyes pushed her into a rage she could not control. What happened next shocked the entire police department. Alfreda returned to her car, grabbed her service weapon, walked up to Mario's unmarked police vehicle, and opened fire without hesitation. She shot more than 15 rounds into the vehicle. The bullets hit Kenesha multiple times, striking her in the arm, leg, and head. Mario, however, was not hit at all. Kenesha suffered severe injuries and began bleeding heavily inside the car. After the shooting, Mario panicked. He reversed the car and drove deeper into the park, hoping to get away or regroup. But Alfreda followed him. When their vehicle stopped, the two began to argue again. The scene was chaotic and emotional. Mario pleaded and yelled. Kenesha lay wounded, fighting for her life. According to court testimony, Alfreda knelt beside the car and asked Kenesha if she was okay. Kenesha nodded weakly. Even in that moment, Alfreda seemed torn between anger and guilt. At one point, Alfreda suggested taking Kenesha to the hospital, but Mario told her not to. He allegedly said he didn't want Kenesha to speak and reveal what had happened. Alfreda, overwhelmed, fled the scene and drove to her mother's house. She knew the situation had spiraled far beyond anything she had expected. Meanwhile, Mario finally called 911, but instead of telling the truth, he lied and claimed unidentified black men had shot them. When police arrived at Germania Park, they found Kenesha in critical condition. She was rushed to UAB hospital, but despite doctors' efforts, she died from her injuries. The lies could not hold up for long. Witnesses in the park told police they saw a man and a woman arguing after the gunshots. Investigators quickly questioned Mario again, and this time he broke down. He admitted that the shooter was not strangers. It was Alfreda Fluker. The next morning, police officers went to Alfreda's mother's house. There, they arrested her without a struggle. The news spread quickly. A respected officer had used her service weapon to kill someone because of jealousy and rage. The community was shocked. Her own co-workers were stunned. Many had worked side by side with Alfreda for years. They struggled to understand how someone with her experience, training, and responsibility could commit such a reckless act. Prosecutors charged Alfreda with capital murder for killing Kenesha and attempted murder for firing at Mario. Her trial painted a clear picture of what happened. The prosecutors argued that Alfreda acted with intent. They said she knew exactly what she was doing when she loaded her gun, walked toward the vehicle, and fired shot after shot. They also emphasized that she used her official service weapon, the same weapon she carried to protect the public. The defense, however, argued that Alfreda acted in the heat of passion. They described her emotional and mental state at the time, how she had been pushed to the edge by Mario's lies, cheating, and manipulation. They said she was blinded by heartbreak and could not think clearly. Alfreda herself said she could not stop replaying the image of Mario and Kenesha together inside the truck she rode in every day for work. She said she felt humiliated, disrespected, and overwhelmed. But the evidence, the number of shots fired, the way she followed the couple after shooting, and her decision to flee, made the jury see it differently. After less than an hour of deliberation, the jury found her guilty of capital murder and attempted murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. The weight of the decision settled on everyone in the room. On February 6, 2023, Alfreda Fluker was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The judge said her actions were deliberate and devastating. She had abused her authority as an officer. She had taken a life, destroyed a family, and betrayed the oath she swore to uphold. She would spend the rest of her life behind bars. As of April 2025, Alfreda has served about 2 years of her sentence. She is somewhere in an Alabama state prison, no longer an officer, no longer in uniform, and no longer trusted with the responsibility she once carried. Her life, once stable and respected, is now defined by a single explosive moment of emotional violence. Mario White, the man at the center of this tragedy, survived the shooting without a single gunshot wound. But he also lost everything: his career, his relationship, and his reputation. Kenesha Fuller lost her life. Her family lost a daughter, a mother, and a friend. And the Birmingham Police Department lost an officer they once believed in. The case of Officer Alfreda Fluker serves as a harsh reminder that a badge does not guarantee good judgment, emotional stability, or moral integrity. Even someone with years of training can make a terrible choice when blinded by jealousy and rage. One moment of uncontrolled emotion can ruin lives forever. Number 3. Officer Sophie Emms. In the United Kingdom, one of the most surprising criminal cases involving a law enforcement officer happened not because of violence or jealousy, but because of manipulation, money, and a dangerous relationship that should never have happened in the first place. The officer at the center of this case was a woman named Sophie Emms, a 29-year-old prison officer who began her career wanting to help keep order and protect the public. But her life took a dark turn when she met an inmate named Jediah Clark. When Sophie first started working at the prison, she had no idea how drastically her life would change. She was new to the job, eager to prove herself, and trying to manage her personal financial struggles at the same time. She had debts and money problems she couldn't solve easily. That made her vulnerable, something that inmates who know how to manipulate people can sense from miles away. Inside the prison, she met 42-year-old Jediah Clark. Clark was not an ordinary inmate. He was serving a long sentence and already had a deep history with crime. He knew how to take advantage of people, and he knew exactly how to spot weakness. When he met Sophie, he began slowly building a relationship with her. At first, it may have felt innocent. Small conversations, harmless jokes, friendly interactions, but it began crossing the line. Sophie started spending more time around Clark. She began trusting him, and eventually, their relationship turned romantic. A relationship between a prison officer and an inmate is strictly forbidden. It is considered a major betrayal of trust and a serious breach of security. Sophie knew this. Every officer knows this. But by the time she realized the danger, she was already emotionally attached to Clark. He had a strong influence over her, and he used that influence to push her deeper into criminal behavior. Clark learned about Sophie's financial problems and used them as leverage. He convinced her that she could solve her money issues if she helped him smuggle illegal items into the prison. He promised her money. He promised her affection. And he promised her that no one would ever find out. Sophie, blinded by her feelings for him and desperate for money, agreed. But this wasn't a small, simple operation. It became a full business enterprise inside the prison, one that involved Clark, Sophie, and Clark's 61-year-old mother, Joy Wickham. Joy played a major role. She helped source synthetic cannabinoid spice, also known as zombie drug, or simply spice. It is a powerful and dangerous drug that is illegal in the UK and extremely valuable inside prisons. Joy would take normal puzzle books and soak their pages with the drug. Once the pages dried, they looked like ordinary paper. Sophie's job was to bring these puzzle books inside the prison. She hid them in her belongings and delivered them to Clark or to another inmate who worked with him, a man named Joel Barker. Barker stored the books in his cell until the drugs could be prepared for sale. Inside the prison, the pages were cut into thin strips. These strips were sold to inmates, allowing Clark's group to make thousands of pounds in profit. The operation ran like a full drug business. Sophie brought the product. Clark distributed it. Barker stored it. Joy supplied it. Everything worked smoothly for a while. Sophie received about £7,000 for her role. That is a lot of money for someone struggling financially, and it only encouraged her to continue. But crimes never stay hidden forever. Soon, the Eastern Region Special Operations Unit began investigating suspicious activity inside the prison. They noticed strange behavior, they noticed unusual purchases, and they eventually traced the drug-soaked puzzle books back to Sophie. Once officers uncovered the truth, everything collapsed. Sophie was arrested, along with Clark and Joy Wickham. During questioning, Sophie admitted to smuggling the prohibited items. She said she was manipulated and pressured by Clark. She said she thought he cared about her. It was clear that she had allowed an inmate to influence her actions, and she now had to face the consequences. The case went to Norwich Crown Court in December 2024. Sophie pleaded guilty to conspiracy to convey prohibited items into prison. The judge, Catherine Moore, called her actions a gross breach of trust. She told Sophie that as a prison officer, she had a responsibility to maintain safety, not help inmates run a drug business. The judge said Sophie had betrayed her colleagues, the justice system, and the public. Because of that betrayal, the punishment needed to be serious. Sophie was sentenced to 2 years and 11 months in prison. Clark, the mastermind behind the operation, received 6 years and 2 months. Joy Wickham was sentenced to 4 years. Even though the drug operation generated about £130,000 in total value, Sophie was only ordered to repay £48.50, the amount she had left in her bank account. She was also told to pay £228 in costs. If she failed to pay, she would face an additional 7 days in custody. Clark and Wickham's financial cases were postponed for further investigation. The investigation also revealed how deeply manipulated Sophie had become. There were messages showing Clark controlling her emotionally. He made her believe she was important to him. He made her feel valued. But in reality, he was using her to make money. When Sophie saw the evidence in court, pictures, texts, financial records, she finally understood how dangerous the relationship had become. For the prison service, Sophie's case was a painful reminder of how easily an officer can be pulled into illegal behavior if they let personal emotions override their professional responsibilities. She was not the first prison officer in the UK to be manipulated by an inmate, and unfortunately, she will not be the last. Inmates who are charming, persuasive, or manipulative often look for officers who seem lonely, stressed, or financially insecure. And once they find someone vulnerable, they slowly gain control. That is exactly what happened to Sophie. As of April 2025, Sophie has served around 4 months of her sentence. She is now an inmate herself, living the same prison life she once oversaw. Instead of supervising prisoners, she now stands among them. Instead of enforcing the rules, she has to follow them. Her uniform is gone. Her job is gone. Her future in law enforcement is gone. Her story serves as a lesson about how dangerous emotional vulnerability can be for someone working in corrections. One mistake turned into a second mistake, and then into a full criminal operation. A relationship she thought was meaningful was actually a trap. And in the end, Clark's manipulation cost her everything: her freedom, her job, and the respect she once had. Sophie entered the job hoping to help others, but she left it in handcuffs, a reminder that even those meant to uphold the law can be pulled into crime when the wrong person gains influence over their life. Number 4. Officer Paula Attwood-Rees. In South Wales, a shocking and violent incident unfolded in 2023 that involved a retired police officer, someone who once protected the public but later became a threat to the very people around her. The woman at the center of this case was 59-year-old Paula Attwood-Rees, a former response officer with South Wales Police. She had served for many years, answering emergency calls and rushing into dangerous situations to help others. But long after her retirement, something in her life and mind changed. Whatever stability she once had slowly broke down, and it eventually led to an explosion of violence that nearly killed 2 innocent neighbors. After retiring, Paula moved with her wife to Alexandra Terrace in Monkswood, a quiet residential street. Their new neighbors were Christopher and Jacqueline Teague, a married couple in their late 60s. At first, everything seemed normal between the 2 households, but over time, tension began to develop. There were disagreements, arguments, and accusations. No one knows exactly how the hostility started. Some say it began with noise complaints, others say it was personal misunderstandings, but whatever the cause, the relationship between Paula and the Teagues kept getting worse. Eventually, things escalated to the point where Paula damaged the Teagues' car. The damage was serious enough that the matter went to court, and Paula was convicted. After the court hearing, there was anger and bitterness on both sides. The Teagues went back to their home, probably exhausted from all the drama. Paula also returned to her house, but instead of calming down or walking away from the conflict, she allowed her emotions, anger, frustration, resentment, to take over her mind. And this decision led to one of the most disturbing neighbor attacks seen in Wales in recent years. Later that same day, as the Teagues sat down for dinner in their home, Paula armed herself with a collection of weapons. She didn't just pick up one item in anger. She gathered several items deliberately, as if preparing for a mission. She took 2 knives, a metal pole, an electric cattle prod, and even a shovel. She then marched across the street to the Teagues' home. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. She was prepared for violence. When she reached their house, she didn't knock or shout. She kicked through their French doors, smashing them open and forcing her way inside. Christopher and Jacqueline were stunned. Suddenly, a woman they knew, someone they lived near every day, had broken into their home like an intruder. Paula immediately attacked Jacqueline. She punched her in the face with so much force that she broke Jacqueline's nose. She then slashed Jacqueline's wrist with a knife, causing bleeding and panic. Christopher tried to help his wife, but Paula turned her anger toward him too. She struck him repeatedly, using a poker and one of the knives. Both victims were terrified, injured, and unable to stop the attack. Throughout the assault, Paula made it clear that she intended to murder them. She shouted that she wanted to kill them both. For the Teagues, this was no longer an argument or a confrontation. This was a fight for their lives inside the home they had lived in for nearly 4 decades. The attack spilled outside when Jacqueline tried to escape and call for help. Paula followed her, still filled with rage, and used the shovel to smash the Teagues' cars. When Jacqueline tried to use her phone, Paula struck her on the head with the shovel. The blow was powerful and dangerous. It could easily have been fatal. Jacqueline collapsed, bleeding and terrified. The attack only stopped because fate interfered. A few passing motorists who happened to be driving through the neighborhood saw the violent scene unfolding on the front lawn. They quickly pulled over and rushed to help. Seeing the chaos, they physically restrained Paula, holding her down until the police arrived. Even when officers arrived, Paula fought back. She struggled as they tried to handcuff her. She kicked and resisted until they forced her face down on the ground. Officers warned her that she would be tasered if she didn't stop resisting. Eventually, they managed to arrest her. Paula was taken into custody and charged with a long list of crimes, including wounding with intent, assault causing actual bodily harm, aggravated burglary, possession of offensive weapons, and assaulting an emergency worker. Prosecutors also charged her with attempted murder because the level of violence she used and the weapons she carried were clearly capable of killing. The aftermath for the victims was devastating. Jacqueline suffered a stroke after the attack, likely brought on by the trauma and stress. Christopher and Jacqueline had lived in their home for 38 years. It was full of memories, comfort, and security. But after the attack, they no longer felt safe there. They made the heartbreaking decision to move out and leave behind the place they had called home for nearly 4 decades. As of April 2025, Paula Attwood-Rees has served only about 6 months of her sentence. She remains in prison with 4 years and 4 months left before she can be considered for early release. She will be around 63 years old when she becomes eligible. The story of Paula Attwood-Rees is a tragic and frightening reminder that anyone, even someone who once wore a police uniform, can become dangerous when anger, stress, mental health struggles, and unresolved conflict collide. Paula once spent her career running toward emergencies to save others. She ended her career by becoming the emergency that others had to respond to. And while she now sits in a prison cell, the people she attacked have to live with the physical scars, emotional trauma, and the painful memory of a night when their neighbor tried to kill them.